everyone, we're back on this Monday evening. It's Weather for Weather Geeks time after a beautiful, beautiful day today. We've got more good news in the forecast for the next couple of days before some changes towards the end of the week. On this quiet evening, I wanted to start out this evening by hitting you with some leaf stats. A little bit of a breeze today, but otherwise it was a nice day to rake some leaves. And with the recent rains, no doubt the leaf drop has accelerated some, even though the entire fall foliage season is, in general, a little bit behind schedule. Well, on a mature oak tree, 200,000 leaves on average, and, well, 1 pound of leaves is about 360 dry leaves. Of course, wet leaves are quite a bit heavier. So in one mature oak tree, there are about 550 pounds of leaves if they're dry. But if they're wet, you can multiply that times 4. Of course, it's no fun to rake wet leaves, and that may be the case later this week, but another good day to rake coming up on our Tuesday. Wednesday looks good as well. Why do the leaves change color? Well, there's, of course, science behind this, and it's all about chlorophyll, and that gives leaves their green color. Well, as the days get shorter and we have less sunlight, well, that chlorophyll is depleted, allowing other pigments to show up. So you get your oranges and reds and yellows and other colors other than green. And, well, the recipe for the best colors, a lot of sunny days and cool nights. Well, we had that today, we'll have that tonight, but we didn't really have that in September and early October, and so that's why everything is kind of behind schedule and maybe a little bit duller than usual. But today was exactly average for the 18th day of October. 42 the low this morning, 61 the high today, exactly average on both ends of the spectrum. We don't hit that very often. And that's why I like to use average more than normal. Sometimes you hear those phrases kind of used interchangeably. Normal is actually, from a grammatical standpoint, incorrect, because it normally is not 61 on today's date. Now, that's the 30-year average, but it's actually abnormal for it to be 61 degrees today. Anyway, semantics, it's one of those kind of pet peeves of mine when it comes to weather communication. It was breezy today. 26-mile-per-hour gust recorded at the airports earlier on this afternoon. So 61 the high locally, 63 in Akron, 63 in Pittsburgh, and 61 in Cleveland today. It hit 71 in Toledo, and the 70-degree air is going to track our way for tomorrow. Now, we had bright sunshine for most of the afternoon from about Youngstown on south and west, but we did have a band of lake effect clouds that actually had a Lake Huron connection, picked up more moisture off of Lake Erie, and just a band of clouds pretty much in west central PA. If it were the middle of winter, we'd probably see snow flurries, maybe even some squalls in this kind of a setup, but today really didn't have much more than some lake effect clouds to the east and northeast of Youngstown. Those clouds have dissipated this evening. It is going to be a clear night tonight. Not much going on in the eastern U.S. Most of the action in the next couple of days, and really the next week or so, will be mostly out west. This is the water vapor loop from the west coast out into the Pacific Ocean. For now, the main storm track is up here into British Columbia. With time, it's going to be more aimed at California. We're going to talk about that later on in this video. In the meantime, high pressure gives us another beautiful day tomorrow. We'll see a few fair weather clouds late in the day into tomorrow night, and then back to sunshine for Wednesday. We'll get into the lower 70s by Wednesday, and then here's the next weather maker. This is a front that's going to track our way Thursday. Pretty good chance of showers with this. I wouldn't even be shocked if we had an afternoon thunderstorm in the mix across the area. And this is a system that's going to hit the brakes and kind of lurk for a couple of days, keeping shower chances around here Friday and into the day on Saturday. And it will come with a cool down as well. After peaking in the lower 70s on Wednesday, back to the mid-60s Thursday, and then no better than the 50s for Friday and for Saturday. I think we'll be drier for the second half of the weekend. Looks like a chilly day for the Youngstown Marathon on Sunday. But at this point, at this stage of the game, it's early on, but it looks like it will be largely dry. This is going to be an interesting pattern that develops out west. Fire hose of moisture aimed right at California and the Pacific Northwest, and actually some much-needed rain coming to places such as San Francisco and into the Central Valley of California, even down into Los Angeles, and the snow will really add up in the mountain areas. When the west is that cold and stormy, typically the pattern east of there is not particularly cold and stormy, so this is the 8 to 14 day outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. Now, this pattern does not look as warm as earlier on this month. By now we're getting into November, so it just gets harder for the atmosphere to produce those kinds of temperatures, but this is going to be a pattern that lacks any sort of abnormal mid-autumn chill coming up at the very end of the month and into early November. This is tonight's run of the European weeklies. Twice a week we get An update on the long-range modeling here from the European Center, and this goes out 46 days. And a couple of things to draw your attention to. Here's our end-of-the-week system right here, bringing some unsettled weather to the Great Lakes and the Northeast. But then the pattern kind of reverts next week into one that's very familiar over the last few weeks, with a big trough along the west coast and out into the Gulf of Alaska, troughing just off the east coast, and then in between this ridge extending from the southeast all the way up through Hudson Bay, Canada. That's the general pattern that's given us all the balmy weather thus far in October. Now, with time, as we roll this forward, everything, all the features become kind of muted as you go out deeper into the longer range. You know, I'm fast-forwarding now here into the first week of November, and by this point, this is an ensemble model, so there are individual runs within this ensemble group that have wildly different solutions, and it all kind of, when you look at the mean, it all kind of looks kind of ho-hum, right? Well, it just kind of gets kind of a muted look as you go out through time, but we can still pick out maybe some interesting ideas here. And overall, the idea is that with time, we might see less of a ridge popping up across Hudson Bay and the eastern U.S. Not a deep trough, more than likely, but maybe not as much of a ridge. And so by the first couple of weeks of November, you even start to see some troughs starting to make some progress out of the Rockies, perhaps into the Plain States. And so what I would take away from this is that the end of October does not look cold at all. The first couple of weeks of November might feature a pretty volatile pattern with more chances of cold being introduced into the pattern. And, well, that's no surprise, of course, as the season progresses. It's bound to get colder. When we kind of look at the temperature anomalies in kind of a 30-day chunk, going all the way through almost Thanksgiving time, a month from now, when you average it all together, yeah, the biggest anomalies are on the west coast. Biggest warm anomalies are interior Canada down into parts of the interior U.S. The signal kind of gets washed away along the Appalachians. So, bottom line, with tonight's European run and the support of some other modeling is the season's, of course, going to progress. There's very little information to suggest right now that we're going to go straight into winter or have an abnormally cold period coming up anytime in the foreseeable future. There's going to be some cold shots, especially by early to mid-November. But nothing is showing anything particularly wintry right now for the latter stages of the fall season. Thanks for watching tonight's Monday evening weather for Weather Geeks. I will see you back here on Tuesday.